Hey painters, welcome to another great painting day. I hope you'll enjoy painting this nice juicy watermelon slice with me today. I'm going to get started on the watermelon with my number 8 round Bringle blender. I'm going to use Naphthol Red Light and Warm White. So we'll just fill the brush with Naphthol Red Light. We're going to be using what I call a wet stipple. So we've got just a tiny bit of water in the brush, but we have quite a bit of paint. And it doesn't really matter on here where you start. You have to just start somewhere and then work out from there. So I want to create this kind of a juicy look. So I'm going to stipple with my Naphthol Red Light, and I'm going to cover pretty much a large area of this front section with my red before I pick up any white. Now, right up here next to the apple, eventually when your watermelon is finished, you'll probably have to clean up the edge of that apple a little bit. But you can get pretty close to the edge with your Naphthol Red Light if you just kind of hold your brush off sideways just a little bit, lay it down a little bit, and poke the point of the brush up there next to the apple. And just do a tiny little gentle stipple. And yes, you'll have to clean up your apple, but at least you can get some of that red up next to it. So I'm continuing with my Naphthol Red Light. Now I don't want to create too much of a pink look to the watermelon. So I'm going to wash the red out of my brush rather quickly. I want to work into that wet red as much as I can. I'm picking up my white now, Warm White, and I'm going to start stippling right along the edge of this front section. I'm going to go ahead and stipple into the red and back into the white again. So then I'm creating this, it's a pink, but it isn't the kind of pink you get when you mix red and white together on your brush. So now I'm stippling back and forth into my red. I'll turn my brush over. I've got quite a bit of white still on that side, so I'm going to turn it over and stipple a little more white in there. And I want to bring this down onto the red area quite a bit because I want to come back with my red, so I want to create as much light as I can. I'm going to wash my brush again, blot it out. I'm back into my Naphthol Red Light now. I'm going to start the Naphthol Red Light down here where I want it to be kind of dark. Put that back in. I'm going to play around with the two colors for a few minutes, the red and the white. I'm going to go ahead and just mess up that apple because I don't want to create a halo around that apple. Okay, wash my brush. And I'm back into my white one more time. Just put that on my brush. Now I'm going to increase the pinkish look up here at the top part of that front section. This watermelon slice seems to have a big chunk taken out of it there. It's kind of where that really ripe watermelon fell apart when you cut it. Washing my brush. And now I want to create just a little bit of variation in color. I don't really want to create a dark area, but I want some variation in color. So with Naphthol Red Light on my brush, I'm going to pick up the tiniest little bit of Payne's Gray. I want to mix those together on my palette so that gives me a dark red color. I don't want it to be purple. I want it to be a dark red. And I'm going to stipple just here and there, mostly in the darker part of the watermelon, not so much up in that whitish light pink area. Kind of like so. Alright, now I'm thinking I probably need to have at least one more blending, so I'm going into my Naphthol Red Light again. And I'm going into my Warm White, and this time I didn't wash my brush. Just have to kind of do thin layers of color, and I'm working kind of fast. I want to work wet into wet. My surface is drying, but I also, when I pick up the two colors, first red and then white, or white and then red, I'd like to be able to mix those two colors together, wet into wet. Okay, I think that looks pretty good for that area. Now, one of the things I'll do is wet my brush, and I'm just going to try to do some initial cleaning up here on my apple. So with just water in my brush, I'm going to push the tip of the brush out to the edge of the apple and just gently, don't be using a Q-tip because a Q-tip will lift your apple color and make a hole, and you don't want to do that. So just gently cleaning up the edge of my apple. And I'll use a dry blender to just kind of finish off blending that watermelon. More to come on that. Now we want to make sure this is nice and dry, and then we'll start with the white part of the rind right in here. So my red is dry. I'm still using that same size, number 8. You could use a number 6 round blender. And I'm going to push this color right up next to, right up onto the pattern line. I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit of extra water in my brush so that I'm able to push the paint right to the edge. I'll go around the grape in there. And once we get into more detail, I'll probably pick up a little bit smaller brush. I've blotted my brush. I blotted it on my cloth. And now I'm going to stipple the white that I laid down there, warm white. And I'm just going to stipple kind of firmly when I'm in the white area, but then I'm going to really lighten up when I go on to the red. If I mess up that grape, I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so what I want to do is make a nice smooth transition from red to white. So I'm going to push the tip of my brush again out to the pattern line. And I think this is a leaf right here, so we won't worry too much about that right now. And then I'm going to stipple. You notice that I didn't put my white all the way out to the red. I kind of rubbed it towards the red, but then I want to stipple it as I take it all the way out to the red. So we'll blend those two together. Now we'll probably have to do that a couple of times before it looks just right. I'm going to pick up a smaller brush, my warm white again, and I want to create the detail here that we're going to need. We don't want the watermelon to look fuzzy, so I want to create a nice line, a nice good strong pattern line along this top edge right here, all the way out to the corner, and then coming down the curve right in here. Okay, now I've taken it towards the red, I blot my brush, and then I want to stipple into the red. Wash my brush, pick up a little more Naphthol Red Light. Now I want to create the detail coming from the red back into the white. So I'm going to rub, blot my brush, and then I'm going to stipple my red into the white right in that area. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I've got a little bit of an irregular pattern line here to show where the watermelon was kind of smushed when it was cut. I had the red on my brush, so I went ahead and used the red first. Now I've washed my brush, I'm using my white, and I want to create this bit of detail right here. So I'm going to place that where I want it, kind of move towards the red, blot my brush, and then stipple. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to repeat the white, blending it into the red. Now to paint the skin of the watermelon, I'm going to use my number 6 round. It still has a pretty good point on it. I'm using green mixes number 1, 2, and 3. I'll start out with maybe number 2 and number 1 in this light area here, and I'm going to just stroke that on basically with my round brush. I'll go to a darker green over here on this side. I'm just going to stroke it down into that leaf that's sitting in front. A little bit of light green, maybe a little bit lighter, right in this area, and push that right up next to the white so that the edge of the skin is right on top of the white part of the rind. Okay, and now I'm picking up some burnt umber just on my dirty brush. I didn't wash the green out. And I'll stick the burnt umber back here behind the nest and behind the leaf. And I'm just going to pull it forward. Most of my paint that's on here is still wet. I'm blotting my brush, and you can see that it's wet because of the shine that you're getting there. I think that gives you a little better look. I'll pick up some of my light green again, maybe my number 2 green, and brush this on. Now, because of the shine and because of wanting to do a blend, we're going to let this dry before we go on. I did a couple of things while my skin was drying. I used a little bit more warm white, and I did a dry rub and blended my white back into my green tint here so that it wouldn't be quite so harsh. Softened that up quite a bit. I painted some black seeds, and I drew some couple of places where I want to put some little seed pockets. But let's go back to the skin real quick. I want to go back to my light value on my round blender, and I want to create this place here where the light is hitting the fattest, roundest part of that skin. So I'm going to lay that on where I want it. I'm going to blot my brush, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of a dry rub. Remember, I don't want to dry rub over that wet area that I've applied because it'll just lift it up. So I'm blending around the outer edges with a dry rub. Then I'm going to go back and pick up burnt umber again, and I want to create a pretty dark area along that far right edge. So I want to place it right here. Again, you're probably getting a shine, and when the paint is wet, it's shiny, and then you can't see what I'm doing till it's dry. I'll try to get it at an angle here. I want to just blend this dark into my green skin so that I have more of a shadow along that far edge, so that that'll pull that edge backwards and let it disappear in with the leaves. There. Okay, I've got my seeds painted black. The finishing on those is very simple. You're going to use, I like to use a small blender brush rather than a liner. I'm going to use some warm white or the dirty white. It doesn't matter which one you use. I'm just going to scuff a nice little highlight on the fat part of the seeds that is facing the light, which is on the upper right corner. The light is coming from upper right. So I'm scuffing a little highlight on there. I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to just, I'm going to pick up some Naphthol Red Light for a very dry rub. So I'm putting that in the brush and then I'm blotting it way out. I'm just going to gently, gently, gently dry rub over that white highlight. Now for the seed pockets, where a seed was before we cut the melon, but now it has fallen out, we definitely want to have the shape of the seed there in order to work with it. You can use a little bit of Magic Mix. You don't have to have very much. You're going to use your number 2 round blender, a little Magic Mix on the brush, and make sure you don't have too much. I'm going to use a darker color of red than what's on the melon right where I'm working. So if I had some Payne's Gray, or if I had my dark red along with Naphthol Red Light, so that I can mix a color that is just a little bit lighter, a little bit darker than the watermelon meat where I'm working. I've got to turn this around so that I can point the tip of my brush into this right hand edge. Now you'll want to refer to your instructions so that you can remember where this goes, but the darker red goes inside the pocket on the right edge, and I'm just, like I said, I've got a little Magic Mix. I've scooped up some of that dark red on the tip of my brush, and I'm just pushing it along the pattern line inside the shape on the right side. Now on the left side, which I've got it turned upside down right now, so it's backwards, but on the left side you're going to do outside the shape on the meat of the watermelon. So you're going to do a magic float right along the pattern line along that outside edge. Now when I turn it right side up again, you can see that I floated inside along the right hand edge and outside along the left hand edge. Okay, and then the next step is just to use some white, again with Magic Mix on my brush, a little bit of warm white on the tip of my brush, and I want to create a light area inside the shape along the left edge. Make sure you don't have too much on your brush. This is almost just like doing a water drop. The idea is that we're creating a little spot here. Remember that the light source is on the upper right hand side, and so if this was a little hole, the light would hit from here, it would hit the edge of that little hole right here and right here, but the edge here would cast a shadow into the hole. So your number 1 goal is to not let your light area be too white. You might even want to use some pink instead of white for that light area. Now, if it was water drop, then we'd go ahead and put some little sparkle highlights on it and make it look like water. But it's not a water drop, so we're just going to leave it as is. Now, I think we've completed the watermelon for today, so I hope you have fun painting that, and I'll see you again next time. Paint happy!